While the news of Drew Sanders tearing his Achilles tendon a month ago came out yesterday and has bummed a lot of people in Broncos country out, by far the preponderance of evidence is that there is a ton of good news going into the Denver Broncos and phase 3 of off-season workouts. OTAs starting today, and we have just had a flood of great news coming in that just so greatly outweighs the bad news that we have in an Achilles injury. And I just do not like what I'm seeing on Twitter and stuff like that. People kind of having, here we go again, it's going to be a long season. The positive news so drastically outweighs the negative news that it's not even close. So let's dive into some of the positive things that have just been coming out. If you're new to this channel, my name is Ben, diehard Denver Broncos fan, and I'm just loving doing this channel with all of y'all, and I read all the comments, so it helps me out a lot if you like and subscribe. But let's dive in. So the first amazing piece of good news is all around Bo Nix, and we have just heard the national narrative that Sean Payton settled on his quarterback has just been smashed down by all of the coaches who have real street cred and real skin in the game come out and just gush about this guy. So we have RGIII, Bill Belichick, Dez Bryant, and now we see on the Phil Simms and Chris Simms show, both really plugged-in analysts who both played the position, just gush about him. And so here's a snippet of their conversation and why they think Bo Nix is going to be so good. And I just couldn't agree more with these guys and the rest of people who know what they're talking about, who just say Sean Payton got his guy. He didn't settle. This is his guy, and here's why.
Thought the personalities are going to match.
Right.
I mean, Bo Nix, his father's a coach. I think he won a state championship down in Alabama this year. So he's the man. So right away, that just tells you kind of who Bo Nix is going to be. Then if you watched him play, he's another one. I watched him during the season. I
want to get into his physical tools there, but the mental part of the quarterback position cannot be underrated. And as in the pre-draft whole hype leading up to it, that was the thing that Sean Payton talked about the most, is that they give a score based on your ability to learn, and that was probably the score he cares more about than any of those physical traits. It's, can you learn? And while being a coach's son can just be a cliche for not being that great of an athlete, but you're pretty smart, I think Bo Nix perfectly combines the brilliance that is required to run Sean Payton's offense and to just take the train off the tracks. And he's got the physical tools, which both of these guys continue to gush about in their interview.
I said he looks bigger than 6'2". Yeah. I don't know what it is. He's long-legged.
Yeah.
He's got great size. I think he's very mobile. I think he didn't get the credit he deserved there. And, his arm strength. And is it elite? No. But he does make a lot of power throws every single game.
He was another one, I would say, towards the last week. You kept calling me going, man, this Bo Nix, I don't know why anybody wouldn't like him. He makes one great throw, one great decision after another. And there's plenty of power throws on the
Yeah, there is. So I don't know he's old. God, that's another thing that irks my ass.
So a couple of huge things there. So we hear them talk about the smarts, which is huge. Then he's much bigger than he looks, so that's huge. As you look at Russell Wilson, who's like 5'11", wearing cleats, and he was dwarfed by a lot of his offensive linemen, and that's why he couldn't see over the middle of the field, and that was a crucial part of Sean Payton's offense. We now have a guy who can do that. The age part, being 25, how many different offensive coordinators did he have? And I think the stat was he had like 5 different offensive coordinators in college, and he learned each of those systems. And if you go and watch the YouTube series, and I'll link it in the show notes here, the Grit and Glory, I think is what it's called. It's just been amazing. And you watch all of his coaches there just absolutely rave about him. And so you see people whose opinion I trust saying Bo Nix was Sean Payton's guy. He threw up smoke screens. He tricked the Minnesota Vikings into thinking we were trading up, so they went and got JJ, and we got our guy in Denver, and that should get us all crazy, crazy hyped for OTAs and beyond. So they continue that. That conversation is a fantastic one, and I can link to that as well. But they just think he's going to learn this system very, very quickly, and that being a coach's son is going to enable him to do that. And being a guy who just studies football, his backpack was full of football stuff, and that's going to be very good for us. And so I encourage you to go listen to that, because that will have you feeling really high. Other huge piece of good news is that we were able to get Franklin, who a lot of people had ranked in the second round. There were times I remember watching CU Oregon, and people then were talking about him being a late first-round draft pick, and somehow he fell to us in the 4th round pick. And he is using that as a chip on his shoulder. And so literally in the last interview that he had, he just said, hey, I'm giving myself that self-talk to hype myself up and just reminding myself of what the other 31 teams thought of me, because my job is to prove them wrong. And he ends with, so I just let that sit in my head, a chip on my shoulder type of deal. So anytime you have a first-round talent who's got something to prove, that is a very, very good thing for us. So love this article. Big fan of what they're doing at Predominantly Orange and what Saire's doing on Locked On Broncos as well. And he went through a great thing about, hey, what were the 10 best moves of the 2024 offseason? And I couldn't agree more with one of the things that they were talking about. And some of the ones to me were just all of the crazy, sneaky, underrated free agent draft pickups that we got, that I think we're going to see him in a Broncos uniform and be like, what? When did we get that guy? Like, when did we get Brandon Jones, who's just balling out of control and is probably as talented as Justin Simmons at this point in his career? What we got, like all of this insane talent that really went under the radar. I think getting Josh Reynolds as an upgrade for Jerry Jeudy was massive. And my friends who live here in Michigan just talk about how big of a loss that was for the Detroit Lions, because he's a no-drama guy who does the right thing, not afraid to block, and I think that's awesome. Picking up the best run stopper in the NFL in Malcolm Roach. And then I think one of the things that I'm not hearing a ton about are just the new positions that the Denver Broncos have been able to add because we have the richest owner in sports. And so we went out and we stole one of the scouts from the Saints and we created a brand new position. We didn't fire any of our scouts. We just added a new position there. And then we went out and got Jim Leonard, who a lot of people think is a future defensive coordinator in the NFL, a future head coach in the NFL, played for the Denver Broncos. And we have him now in this new kind of position as a passing game coordinator. And I think he's got a lot of room to grow. And I think him and Vance Joseph are going to really be able to establish his defense this year. And that has me excited. And then, obviously Bo Nix is the hugest one. But I think here, one of the ones that they talk about pretty highly in this article as well that I'm not hearing a ton about was just the contract deals we've been able to do with Tim Patrick. I think was fantastic as well, and him coming back. But one of the things, do you remember that when Sean Payton did that interview with Seth Wickersham and he put Nathaniel Hackett on blast and people just used that to throw Sean Payton under the bus and say, oh, no teams will ever deal with Sean Payton again. And then the Denver Broncos go on to do 2 major trades with the New York Jets, that team who people said, oh, he burned a bridge there. And so obviously that was an overrated storyline that didn't ring true. And we went out and we were able to swap picks and end up with a starting defensive lineman in John Franklin Myers. And you watch the Jets post-draft conference and you see the guys like almost emotional, like so upset, and they just knew that where they were at when it came to salary cap space, they weren't able to keep all the talent they had. And they're like, hey, we love Franklin Myers. Like, this guy is a beast. And we got a starting defensive lineman for like a 6th-round draft pick. And that is unreal. Like, imagine getting a starting defensive lineman. If we picked at 6, we'd be over the moon excited. And so obviously I'm really high on the Denver Broncos draft in a number of other areas, but those things are just crazy, crazy exciting to me. A couple other things that have me really excited about moving into OTAs in this offseason is Denver Broncos. It was just announced, and it was actually announced by Green Bay because they had media availability before the Broncos coach, that the Denver Broncos are going to be doing a joint one-day training camp practice, joint practice with the with the Packers. I think this is good for a number of reasons. If we were to do a joint practice with like the Panthers or something, that's not making us better. But the Packers were an insanely hot team moving into the playoffs. And yes, we beat them here, which should have you excited because we beat a playoff team. And that, was in that 5-game win streak we had. We beat 5 playoff teams and we're just building on that. So be excited. But the fact that we are going against a team that can run the ball, we're going against an elite quarterback, and I think this is going to show the Denver Broncos a lot about this roster. So really, really excited that not only are we doing a joint practice, but we're doing it against a team that is a playoff team that I think will make us better and truly show us what we have as we move into the season. Also, this is going to be open. This is going to be a home joint practice that will be open to fans. So that's going to be in August, and I am going to be there. So that I'm very excited about that. So much to be excited for as we move into OTAs. I think obviously you cannot think of a worst offseason than what the Kansas City Chiefs have had, with arrests, with battery of photographers, with your kicker like becoming a GoFundMe, and like just creating national controversy, with your starting tight end who's just getting older, not training, but instead touring the world with Taylor Swift. And I'm high on the Broncos right now, and I think nothing is going to change my view, and let's hope the injury bug stays away from us. We will be covering all things that happen at OTAs live right here, so make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss a beat. But let's get excited, because the Achilles injury is a bummer, but guys, there's no way Sean Payton regresses this year. The sky is the limit. If he was able to take Russell Wilson and win 3 more games than Russell Wilson had won the previous year, if he was able to take a guy who can't run his offense and still get 8 wins, what is he going to do this year with a guy who can run his offense, with a guy who so many people are raving about? And that should have you all very, very excited. So if you don't believe, it's time to believe. Broncos country, giddy up. That one felt good.